We're going to start out with a clip here, because we want to bring our music down and bring the computer on up if we could. Takes a second sometimes.
Gentlemen, open your text, page 21 of the introduction.
We're going to need one more try.
Perry, will you read the opening paragraph of the preface entitled Understanding Poetry?
Understanding Poetry by Dr. J. Evans Pritchard, Ph.D. To fully understand poetry, we must first be fluent with its meter, rhyme, and figures of speech. Then ask two questions. One, how artfully has the objective of the poem been rendered? And two, how important is that objective? Question 1 rates the poem's perfection. Question 2 rates its importance. And once these questions have been answered, determining the poem's greatness becomes a relatively simple matter. If the poem's score for perfection is plotted on the horizontal of a graph, and its importance is plotted on the vertical, then calculating the total area of the poem yields the measure of its greatness. A sonnet by Byron might score high on the vertical, but only average on the horizontal. A Shakespearean sonnet, on the other hand, would score high both horizontally and vertically, yielding a massive total area, thereby revealing the poem to be truly great. As you proceed through the poetry in this book, practice this rating method. As your ability to evaluate poems in this manner grows, so will your enjoyment and understanding of poetry.
Excellent. That's what I think of Mr. J. Evans Pritchard. I'm not laying pipe, talking about poetry. How can you describe poetry like American Bandstand? I like Byron, I give him a 42, but I can't dance to it. Now, I want you to rip out that page. Go on. Rip out the entire page. You hear me? Rip it out. Rip it out! Go on. Rip it out! Thank you, Mr. Dalton. Gentlemen, tell you what, not just tear out that page, tear out the entire introduction. I want it gone. History. Leave nothing of it. Rip it out. Rip! Be gone, J. Evans Pritchard, Ph.D. Rip, shred, tear, rip it out. I want to hear nothing but the ripping of Mr. Pritchard. We'll perforate it. Put it on a roll. Not the Bible. You're not going to go to hell for this. Go on. Make a clean tear. I want nothing left of it. Rip it out, rip! What the hell is going on here? I don't hear enough rip. Who's Peter? McAllister.
I'm sorry, I didn't know you were here.
I am.
Ah, so you are. Excuse me.
Keep ripping, gentlemen. This is a battle, a war, and the casualties could be your hearts and souls. Thank you, Mr. Dalton. Armies of academics going forward, measuring poetry. No! You will not have that here. No more, Mr. J. Now, my class, you will learn to think for yourselves again. You will learn to savor words and language. No matter what anybody tells you, words and ideas can change the world. See that look at Mr. Pitt's eye? Like 19th century literature has nothing to do with going to business school or medical school, right? Maybe. Mr. Hopkins, you may agree with him, thinking, yes, we should simply study our Mr. Pritchard and learn our rhyme and meter and go quietly about the business of achieving other ambitions. Let's see it for you. Good luck. Good luck! We don't read and write poetry because it's cute. We read and write poetry because we are members of the human race. And the human race is filled with passion. In medicine, law, business, engineering, These are noble pursuits and necessary to sustain life. Poetry, beauty, romance, love. These are what we stay alive for. To quote from Whitman, "O me, O life, of the questions of these recurring, of the endless trains of the faithless, of cities filled with the foolish, what good amid these, O me, O life?" Answer, you are here. That life exists and identity. The powerful play goes on and you contribute a verse. The powerful play goes on and you may contribute a verse. What will your verse be?
Anybody know what movie that was? Dead Poets Society. I highly recommend it if you have the chance. Even if you don't have the chance, take it anyways. I love that opening. So we have, we're going to plot poetry, right? And we have the importance and the perfection. And so Shakespeare is clearly, much better than Byron. And what did he say about that? Excrement, yes, because he was in a class of kids. That's what he said. Right? Right? I love what he says. It's not like we're doing American Bandstand, right? I get Bargain at 42. I like him, but I can't dance to him. What did you notice? How did the kids feel about ripping that out? Oh man, because we're taught we don't do that kind of thing, right? Did it take them long to get into it? Who would like to have a class like that? Like, yeah, school should be like that, right? It's interesting. We've lived in this culture where we've kind of treated things as if it's just an intellectual thing, right? So we're trying to evaluate poetry, right? And so we have our scale for evaluating poetry, right? We have, armies of academics, going out measuring poetry. If it's this here, now we know it's truly great, and that will help us to appreciate it. And he said, no, that's excrement. We're not laying pipe, right? We try to think that it's only about the intellect and the logic that tells us what life is about. He says, but there's also what? There's passion and love and beauty. And I think that's important for us as people of faith too, because I think that we've tried to put God in that same box, that God is just the intellectual box, and especially when we do that, then it's easy we can also dismiss God, because we can say, well, God doesn't really fit these things, and so it's easy. But if we're human beings, then life is something much deeper that we're invited to explore. And there's not this divide. There's you were talking about God is everywhere, or transforming secular space, and I think maybe even a better title would just be that everything is sacred. That God is in everything. Everything is sacred, and we need to act that way. Now it's interesting. Do the next slide if we could, guys. We kind of live in this culture of dualisms, right? It's only the intellect or there's feeling, and we denigrated feeling, right? Guys use their heads, and women, we're comfortable. We got to stick with our heads. Guys really didn't work that way. We just pretended they did, right? But we created sacred and secular, and they were separate realms, and they never met. There was natural and supernatural, individual or community. There's mind and body, right? And there's separate things. Don't mix those things. There's public and private. There's belief and action, body and soul. And we act as if they could just be kept apart. But if everything is sacred, it's kind of like, I think Rob Bell talks about this in his video on breathing. He says, Moses goes to the burning bush, and God says, take your shoes off because you're standing on holy ground. It's like, he's been walking this ground for 40 years, and now it's suddenly holy. He says, what if it's been that way all the time? What if we're passing burning bushes on the left and on the right, and we just don't see it? If God is in everything, then everything is always sacred, but we just aren't seeing it. The next one, we kind of come out of this Greco-Roman view of body and soul. The soul is this thing trapped inside the body, and it has to get out. And it's an intellectual kind of thing. We talked about this, last fall and through the winter with a series on a new kind of Christianity. And the body was this evil thing, and only the intellect and the soul was what was really important. And it had to get out and get to heaven, and that's what really mattered. But a Jewish understanding was that body and soul are these one thing, that you can't split them. They may be aspects of being, but we're all one whole thing, and you can't break it apart. Adam and Eve, when God creates them, they're living souls. And so the body is also just as important as the soul. We're whole. We can't break those things apart. Yet we try to live that way. And what happens when you try to live in a way that you really, in a way that doesn't coincide with existence. You know what they call that? They call it insanity, right? It's called being crazy, trying to live as if things aren't the way they are, and that's what we've been taught to do. And we often look that way with God. Now, and think about this. Flip the next one here. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but this is a verse from the book in the Bible called the Song of Songs. All right, and let me I'm going to read a few things here. It says, "Look, listen. There's my lover. Do you see him coming? Vaulting the mountains, leaping the hills. My lover is like a gazelle, graceful, like a young stag, virile. Look at him there on tiptoe at the gate, all ears, all eyes ready. My lover has arrived, and he's speaking to me." I'm going to stop right there. Do you know that young boys in Jewish society are not allowed to read this book? Do you know why? What are they talking about there? Love. What kind of love? Oh, erotic love. We're talking erotic. Well, it's a romantic too, but it's erotic. He's viral. He's like a stag, right? And he's at the gate on tiptoes. He can't wait to get in because what's going to happen? You know? Right. Oh, there's some children here. I got to be careful. I'm sorry, guys. All right. What was it, Jody? I think you read it. It was like boys had to be 30 before they could read this. So sorry, guys. You have a little bit of time to go. I actually had a couple who had this for their wedding verse, right? And it was interesting to talk about because they said, we've had problems with this kind of stuff. There's a verse about the creation of the first man and woman, about Adam and Eve, and when Eve is created, and Adam sees her, he says, this is flesh of my flesh, bone of my bone, and it's the whole verse about the two becoming one. And there's a verse that when I had gotten this booklet that had a share of verses from weddings, they left the last verse of the chapter out. It's one verse. It flows through the whole thing. They left out the verse that said, "And they were naked and they weren't ashamed." Why do you think they left that out? Because we tend to be ashamed to be naked, right? Because that's and this is saying, it's embracing. God made that part of us. This is a good thing, and we've been taught to keep these things separate. In the same way that we keep God and the sacred realm separate from the secular realm. Actually, I want to skip past the verses, guys, and go on to actually, I want to read something here.